Hello everyone, we are Team Workforce Visits, and today we will present our analysis on optimizing human capital to drive innovation in clinical research. Our focus is on addressing workforce challenges, specifically high turnover and its impact on costs, innovations, and project outcomes. So this is our table of contents, and we'll be walking you guys through company overview, business case, analysis in Power BI, assumptions, scenario analysis, and recommendations. So for this project, we used a publicly available dataset of a life sciences company. This company operates in a highly competitive clinical research and medical sector where innovation and talent retention are vital to success. However, they are facing significant challenges, which are declining revenues due to inefficiencies and missed opportunities, high project obsolescence costs caused by delays and incomplete research projects, high turnover rates leading to substantial opportunity costs, particularly in the research and development department. What's especially alarming is that the turnover rate in the R&D department is higher than that in the sales department, which disrupts critical research processes, delays project timelines, and increases operational expenses. To address these challenges, we identified key focus areas, which are namely retaining the mid-tenure employees who contribute the most value to the workforce, enhancing job satisfaction, and fostering career development opportunities. And lastly, reducing turnover, obviously, particularly among research scientists, as even a 5% reduction can lead to a significant cost savings and improve project outcomes. With these priorities in mind, our goal is to present a strategy that not only reduces costs but also strengthens the company's competitive position in the market. Now I'll pass it off to Alejandro.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go ahead and talk about the business case and the high-level overview that we found. And we identified six key elements that goes into the business case. The first one being one of the most important ones, which is stating the issue or the issue that we're addressing for this business, and that's the high turnover rates. So there's a high turnover rates in the R&D department, and they have room for improvement because it's causing financial strain to the company. And these high turnover rates are also causing disruptions to the critical research and delays to the project, which is something we wanted to address, and we have solutions for that. So the second element we found was the supporting data, and some of the important metrics that we found was, for example, like the turnover trends. So we found that R&D, it has the highest turnover in absolute terms, and it's going to require focus on retention. Second one is new hire costs. So what we found as well is new hire costs. It costs about 32,500 for each new hire, and that includes onboarding, sign-on bonuses, and lost productivity. And finally, we found the workforce costs. So the total R&D compensation cost is about 78.44 million. And then we have more charts and data in the upcoming slides as well. So with the third element that we found, we wanted to see what we could do with increasing operational efficiency, because that's going to reduce disruption in the R&D process. And that's important for ultimately for employees and revenue as well. So we found that retention is important, and by implementing, talent retention strategy, that's going to help with the professional development, and it's going to help with the retention overall. So the fourth element, which is the as is costs. So that's the most at risk position that we could take, is pretty much not doing anything. And that's the cost for the TCAL, which is the total cost of workforce, it's going to be $86.08 million. And that includes $7.64 million in turnover costs, which is a lot. And that's something we're looking to reduce. And the fifth element we found is pretty much the proposing the interventions. So by reducing the turnover costs by 5.88 million, that's going to reduce the TCAL to 84.32 million. And that's going to include possibly retaining employees, because it's going to minimize the overall long-term costs. And finally, probably the second most important key element here is actually finding the ROI and calculating the cost savings. So we have a target of a 25% goal. And it's going to equate to about $1.76 million in savings. But we did create a range. So we created a range from 15 to 25%, and we want to hit that goal maybe somewhere in the middle. and that range of estimated savings could range from 1.676 million to $4.55 million in savings, with the various amounts of percentage in ROI, which we're going to talk more in depth in the upcoming slides as well. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to my colleague Pedram, and he's going to go over the dashboards.
Thank you, Alejandro. So as for our first dashboard here, I want to have you guys look to the left on the top left side with current employees. Here we can see current employees at this time, at this snapshot time, and we have a healthy ratio of male to females with a slight inclination toward males. We have a turnover rate of 24.56%, which we've indicated to be quite high, and total turnovers are at 361. We have about 56 up for promotion, and we have about 1,470 total employees. And right below it, we could see the employee count by age group, with the 30 to 49 age range being significant. And as to the right of that graph, we could see the current employees by role, with the top three roles being sales executive, research scientist, and laboratory technician. Just above it to the right, we could see the current employees by academic background, which, as we could see, are life sciences, medical, and marketing. Right to the left of that, we could see the current employees by tenure, with those between 5 to 15 years dominating. And right above that, we found it interesting to see what the employee count was by branch, with New York, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. leading. Next slide, please. So on this dashboard, we dive a little bit more deep into turnover metrics. Now, as you can see here on the top, the dashboard, we could see the job satisfaction score, talent assessment, and work-life balance score. Now, these are out of 5, and a 2.73, 3.15, and 2.76 are very low, and these could be analyzed as reasons for turnover. And just right below it, we could see job role and current employees by academic background, those who are up for promotion, and those who have been laid off. Now, right to the right of that, we could see current employees by academic background, by overtime hours. And as we can see here, there's a significant number of employees who are working overtime hours. And right below that, we could also see the employee count by employee performance rating, which, as you can see here, there are a lot of employees who have a medium ranking. Right to the left, we can see employee count by job satisfaction, with a majority of employees having low job satisfaction, which is a red flag we'd like to address. And additionally, to the left of that, we have employee count by work-life balance satisfaction, with medium and low leading the metrics. So we would like to dive a little bit more deeper, with Mika taking on the next slide.
So we did a scenario analysis and we had a couple of assumptions in place for the same, starting with R&D generally having a lower turnover compared to the sales department. Also, based on industry data, we found the average compensation by experience for the R&D wing below 5 years being $80,000, 5 to 15 years being $120,000, over 15 years being $160,000. We also assumed a couple of elements for new hire costs, sign-on bonus and RSU being $25,000, onboarding and training being $5,000, and productivity impact being $2,500. Now, for productivity impact, each new hire experiences a 25% drop in productivity during their first month on the job. So this reduced output translates to a cost of about $2,500 per new hire. Now, for further analysis, I'll pass it on to Arya to explain the same.
Thank you, Mihika. So for scenario analysis part 1, we carefully looked at the turnover percent by department, where we found that the turnover at R&D is the highest at 32.37, specifically mentioning the turnover count. And as Mihika mentioned that in comparison on an overall general basis, the R&D department should have a lower turnover ratio as compared to sales and HR, which here R&D is actually above sales and very close to the HR department. And after specifically focusing on the R&D department, we next step was to find the total workforce, the total cost of workforce, and therefore we use the average salary based on the number of years of experience and multiplying all of them together based on the employees we had by age count, we get to the total figure of $78,440,000. The other calculation that we had to come up was the additional cost per hire, which had a few components. The first one being the new sign-on bonuses and the RSUs, the onboarding costs such as training, joining, and everything, and the third one being productivity, which was mentioned by Mihika. And the number that comes out here is 32,500. On to the next slide. On the part two, we discussed that how if we have different scenarios, that from 32%, if we could get that percentage down to 25%, to 20%, and 15%. So keeping the base compensation same and the number of employees that are currently employed at the company, the base compensation remains same for everyone, but the new component that comes here is the additional new hire cost that we calculated. And based on the current scenario, we are basically spending almost $7,637,000 on that. But if we are able to achieve our scenario one, which is the 25% goal, we would basically be coming down to $5.8 million. Further reduction of 5% would lead us to getting the additional new hire cost down to 4.7, and at 15 we have $3.08 million. And based on that, we see that just based on scenario one, we are approximately saving 1.76 million. And on an ROI basis, using the current cost as the base, we are saving 2.4. For the 20% goal, we are saving 3.4. And for the 15% goal, we're saving 5.29% of cost savings. And as Alejandro also mentioned, the savings in dollar amount varies from $1.76 million to $4.55 million. The key takeaway here is that reducing the turnover, especially in this R&D department, which is one of the most important for this medical device life sciences company, we could basically save a substantial cost if we are able to reduce this turnover and achieve any one of the scenarios that we mentioned. And we could potentially work on retention strategies that are essential to optimize the workforce costs and also improve organization. Now, Mihika will discuss what sort of recommendations we could have to actually achieve the scenarios that we talked about.
Thank you, Arya. So coming to the recommendations, first, we need to focus on R&D retention, as our R&D department has a high turnover rate with 235 employees leaving annually. Addressing this starts with targeted strategies like professional development, flexible work options, and recognition programs to promote internal career growth and engagement. Second, high turnover impacts every department. To mitigate this, we'll implement enhanced onboarding processes, create clear career growth pathways, and develop engagement strategies to retain talent and reduce disruptions. Third, boosting productivity through work-life balance. We propose a flexible work-life program with adjustable hours and hybrid options. This initiative not only supports employee well-being, but also drives sustainable productivity and long-term success. Fourth, mid-tenure employees, those with 5 to 15 years of experience, represent a critical group. They contribute to $42.6 million to workforce costs. Retention efforts in this group will yield the greatest return on investment. Next, coming to optimizing hiring costs, as each new hire currently costs $32,500 due to onboarding, sign-on bonuses, and productivity loss. Streamlining our recruitment and onboarding processes will reduce these costs significantly. Lastly, we need to achieve cost savings through turnover reduction. By targeting a 25% reduction in turnover, we can save $1.6 million annually, lowering our total cost of workforce to $84.32 million as discussed earlier. This is a measurable and impactful step towards a long-term financial sustainable goal. Now, that was the end of our presentation. Thanks for tuning in.